certainly since 2016, 2015, 2016 in the US with Sanders and Trump. But really, especially if you look across Europe, this has been kind of the reality for a good while, certainly since the period following the 2008 financial crisis, right? Because that shakes up the whole order, and you get increasing populist insurgents, right? Different, and you even have precursors to that before that in the Netherlands. You have Pim Fortuyn, these figures who seem to break the mold a little bit of left and right. You know, Pim Fortuyn was gay, socially liberal, but anti-migrant, right? So you get these things which kind of go, well, okay, that doesn't quite fit into the boxes and the kind of polarization that we've understood politics by for the last, well, 200 years maybe, but certainly, you know, in the latter part of the 20th century, what we come to understand politics as. Right, so you got the technocracy and populism, but actually what I'm arguing is that they're kind of coming together. The book that I borrow a lot from in writing this piece, and indeed a lot of the discussions that we've had on Alpha Bunga Bunga, on BungaCast, and indeed the book that we wrote also leans on this concept a lot, is technopopulism. That idea is that there's a kind of formal structure to politics, which is technopopulist, which is to say, it is technocracy and populism both abstract from specific interests and visions of society, you know, to the left and the working class, the right and the middle class, and become a kind of make a claim that kind of we're all in this together. And they do it in different ways, right? So technocracy says, well, we already know what the answers are. We know what the ends of politics should be. We want to make sure that we, whatever, guarantee order and economic growth. And we just need to make sure that we have the right technical implementation. So we have an independent central bank which sets interest rates and just kind of gets on with things, right? That's a kind of technocratic solution. Or, you know, even this applies even to social policy. Right. So we've read all the latest academic papers on how best to raise your child, and we're going to send social workers around to your house to make sure that you're parenting properly, because we have the right answer and the specific way of parenting, which science has told us how to do it. Right. So that's another implementation of technocracy. But the populist cell is done in a similar way insofar as it relies on a certain notion of kind of consensus. We're all in this together, except here it's we, the people, all of us are united against the elite, right? So there's no divisions within the people. There's no class interest specific to it other than opposition to the political caste and the state bureaucracy, right? And that also kind of suggests that, you know, we're kind of that there's kind of just one answer, and they fuse together when the populist goes, I'm representing the people against the elite, and we're going to come in and get the job done because we have the popular will behind us, and we're going to get things done. Get which things done? In whose interest? For what? There's a lot of questions that come beyond after that, because getting things done suggests that you already, again, you know the answer, you know the ends of politics, and it's just a matter of means. Someone like Donald Trump says his means, he has the means because he is not going to care for old pieties of politics or old institutional ways of doing things or negotiations in Congress. He's just going to go and do deals. He has this, you know, you made reference to it in your introduction, kind of business acumen. I know how to do a deal, and I'm just going to kind of have enough thrust to make things happen, right? So that's how they start to come together. And I guess one final element here, which is important to make reference to, is why has this come about? Well, it's because politics as a whole has become increasingly populist. Now, what does that mean? I don't mean to say populist as opposed to technocracy. In fact, populism and technocracy go together. Populism is like the necessary shadow of technocracy. Populism, in this sense, and I know in the US there's this legacy of populism coming from the 19th century populists, which understands it to be something like democratic, plebeian, bottom up, kind of quasi-socialist, except not exactly socialist, right? And maybe it's not socialist because it's a little bit more vague, or it has it presumes an alliance between farmers and workers and small business, for example, which is more broad than a social purely proletarian socialism, for example. But I have a problem with that understanding of populism, because that may be applied and was a kind of true description of the thing in the late 19th century, but not by the time we get to the late 20th century and into the 21st century. Populism, just to be clear, I think the way I use it, and I'm not, there's other people who use it as well, Anton Jaeger or whatever, who understand it as being, in one level, it's kind of pseudo-democratic, making this kind of claim about the people versus the elite, but it is post-ideological in the sense that it doesn't have a coherent programmatic element to it. It often involves a kind of mix and match kind of bit
Mhm.
of policy making, right? And it doesn't really have a program as such. And then finally, and this is very important, at an organizational level, it's kind of post-party. What does that mean? So like, it's not anymore rooted in grassroots politics and different forms of civic association, which feed into a political party, which has a mass membership. It has cadres which are formed. It has local branches which are able to channel interests and ideas up from the people and its members up to the kind of leadership of the party. Like, that is to say, a party which is genuinely popular, organic, and representative. We don't know these things. I mean, the U.S. kind of, with the Democrats and Republicans, hasn't ever had it, at least in the form of those parties, maybe. But even in kind of Western Europe, where you did have parties which actually functioned as kind of democratic popular vehicles, they've been completely hollowed out. And so populism is a way of kind of referring to the people and being kind of quote unquote democratic,
Mhm.
but without the party structures, which are the kind of meat and potatoes of actual democracy. And so you just have this kind of leader at the top, and you got
Oh, no.
a kind of mass of people who turn up. And the Bernie Sanders thing was very populist in that respect.
Mhm.